Commander Dayon stood at the observation deck of the Central Command Station, watching his world die. The second sun in their system, which had burned bright and steady for millions of years, now flickered like a candle in the wind. Its dying light cast strange shadows across the surface of Khazara, turning the once green landscapes into patches of brown and gray. The environmental reports came in every hour, and each one was worse than the last. The temperature was dropping. Across the entire planet, the oceans were starting to freeze at the poles. Crops were failing in the agricultural zones. Animals were dying by the millions. Dayon rubbed his tired eyes. He had not slept properly in weeks. As the military commander of Khazara's defense forces, it was his job to protect his people. But how do you fight a dying star? Sir, the latest projections are ready, said Lieutenant Soin, as she approached with a data tablet. Her voice was steady, but Dayon could see the fear in her young eyes. He took the tablet and read the numbers. They had maybe 6 months before. The planet became completely uninhabitable. Maybe less if the star's decay accelerated. 43 billion Villani lived on Khazara. Their transport ships could evacuate maybe a few million at best. Have we heard anything from the Zenthari Empire? Dayon asked. Soyin shook her head. Ambassador Giwan sent another formal request for assistance yesterday. The Zenthari response was the same as before. He said our situation is regrettable but not their responsibility. Dayon was not surprised. The Zenthari were the most powerful military force in this sector of the galaxy. They had advanced technology and vast fleets of warships. But they only helped those they considered equals or useful allies. The Villani were neither. What about the Nexus Collective? He asked. They offered to purchase our cultural artifacts and historical records, Soyin replied. For preservation purposes, they said. The price they offered would not even pay for fuel to evacuate one city. The Nexus Collective was a machine intelligence that controlled hundreds of star systems. They made every decision based on cold calculations of profit and resource management. To them, saving the Villani was not economically viable. Dayon walked to the large window that looked out over the capital city. The streets below were still busy with normal life. People going to work, children playing in parks, vendors selling food from street carts. Most citizens did not yet understand how desperate their situation had become. The government was trying to prevent panic, but soon they would have to tell everyone the truth. Sir, said another voice behind him. Dayon turned to see Dr. Minhee. Approaching, she was the head of their deep space communication department and one of their best scientists. Doctor, please tell me you have some good news, Dayon said. Minhee smiled, but it was a sad smile. I have been searching through our galactic databases, looking for any civilization we have not yet contacted for help. And I found something interesting. There is a species called humans from a system designated Sol 2-3. They achieved faster-than-light communication about 50 years ago, which makes them very young by galactic standards. Dayon frowned. If they are so young, what help could they provide? We need advanced technology and massive resources. That is what makes them interesting, Minhee said. The database entry is very limited, but it mentions something unusual about them. It says they have an emotional attachment to other species that is uncommon in the galaxy. Emotional attachment? Yes. Most civilizations, like the Zenthari and the Nexus Collective, make decisions based on power, profit, or logical advantage. But the humans apparently consider other factors. Dayon was skeptical. Even if that is true, they are still a young species. What resources could they possibly have? Minhee pulled out her datapad. Their system contains multiple populated worlds, and they have established colonies in at least 12 other systems. For such a young civilization that suggests rapid growth and significant industrial capacity, or it suggests they spread too thin and have nothing left to spare, Dayon replied. Perhaps. But sir, what do we have to lose? We have contacted every major power in this region of the galaxy. They have all refused to help or offered assistance so minimal it would be meaningless. At worst, the humans will ignore us like everyone else. Dayon considered this. Minhee was right. They had exhausted all conventional options. The Xanthari thought the Villani were beneath their notice. The Nexus Collective saw them only as a source of salvageable resources. Smaller civilizations either lacked the ability to help or were too afraid of offending the major powers by getting involved. What would we tell them? He asked. Everything, Minnie said. Complete technical specifications of our situation. Population data, cultural information, full explanation of what we need. If they are as different as the database suggests, maybe honesty will work better than diplomacy. Dayon walked back to the window. Below, he could see engineers working on power grid repairs. The dying star was affecting their electrical systems as well as their climate. Soon, even their cities would start failing. Very well, he said finally. Prepare the transmission. Include all our environmental data, population statistics, and cultural records. Tell them about our situation clearly and honestly. Ask for any assistance they can provide, whether that is evacuation, supplies, or even just acknowledgement that we existed. Minhei nodded. I will work with the communication team to prepare everything. We should be ready to transmit within a few hours. As Minhei left to begin her work, Dayon remained at the window. He thought about the billions of people living their lives below, unaware that their world had only months left. He thought about the children playing in the parks who might never grow up. He thought about the artists and scientists and teachers and workers who would all be lost when Kazara died. Maybe the humans would help. Maybe they would prove different from every other species in the galaxy. Maybe they would see value in saving a dying civilization, even when there was no obvious benefit to themselves. Or maybe they would join the long list of species who found the Alani not worth saving. 4 hours later, Dr. Minnie activated the deep space communication array. The message to the humans contained everything about Villani civilization that could be compressed into a single transmission. Their history, their culture, their science, their art, and their desperate need for help. The transmission shot out across the void of space, carrying the hopes of 43 billion people toward a young species that might, or might not, care about the fate of strangers. Then began the wait. Dayon returned to his duties, coordinating evacuation plans and resource distribution. But part of his mind remained focused on that signal traveling through space toward the Sol system. In a few days, it would reach human space. Then they would learn if this young species called humanity was truly different from the rest of the galaxy, or if they were just as cold and calculating as everyone else. 3 weeks had passed since Dr. Minhei sent the message to the humans, and Commander Dayon was beginning to lose hope. Each morning he checked with the communication center, asking the same question. Each morning the answer was the same. Number. Response from the Sol system. The situation on Kazara was getting worse by the day. The second sun continued its slow death, and the effects were spreading across the planet like a disease. The northern agricultural zones had completely failed now. Food riots had broken out in 2 major cities. The government was using emergency food reserves. Those would not last much longer. Dayon stood in the emergency command center, looking at the latest reports. Chancellor Guan, the head of their planetary government, sat at the main table with her advisors. Her face looked older than it had a month ago. The stress was wearing on all of them. The evacuation ships can carry 300,000 people per trip, reported Transport Minister Hyunwoo. We have managed to secure enough fuel for maybe 20 trips to the nearest habitable system. That means we can save 6 million people at most. 6 million out of 43 billion, said Elder Advisor Yeho, shaking his gray head. We are choosing who lives and who dies. Where Chancellor Juan rubbed her temples. What about the mining colonies on the outer moons? Can we move people there temporarily? The facilities were never designed for large populations, Hyunwoo replied. Maybe we could house 50,000 people across all 3 moons. They would need constant supply shipments, and we do not have the resources for that. Dayon felt a familiar knot in his stomach. Every solution they discussed saved only a tiny fraction of their people. The rest would die when Kazara became uninhabitable. Commander Dayon said, Chancellor Guan. Any word from your human contact? Nothing, he replied. Dr. Minhee has been monitoring all frequencies. The message should have reached their system over a week ago. Maybe their technology is not as advanced as we hoped, suggested Yeho. If they only achieved faster-than-light communication 50 years ago, they might not even have proper deep space receivers. Young Aide Youngie, who usually stayed quiet during these meetings, spoke up. Perhaps they have different communication protocols. Maybe they received the message but are responding through channels we are not monitoring. Yeho looked at her with tired eyes. Child, we have been monitoring every known communication, frequency, and method. If they were trying to reach us, we would know. Dr. Minhee entered the command center at that moment, carrying her data tablet. Daeon felt a small spark of hope. Maybe she had news. Doctor, please tell me you have heard something, Chancellor. Guan said. Minhee shook her head. I am sorry, Chancellor. Still no response from the humans. But I have increased the power output of our communication array. I thought perhaps our original message was too weak to reach them clearly. So you sent another message? Daeon asked. Yes, sir. A more detailed distress call. I included visual records of our failing cities and agricultural zones. I also sent complete environmental data showing the rate of planetary decay. If they received it, there should be no doubt about how desperate our situation is. Hyunwoo leaned back in his chair. How long will it take for this new message to reach them? 3 days, Minhee replied. Then we wait again. The meeting continued for another hour, but there was little new to discuss. They were running out of time and options. When it ended, Daeon walked with Youngie toward the observation deck. You really think the humans might respond differently? He asked her. Youngie was quiet for a moment. I have been reading about other young civilizations in our historical databases. When species first achieve interstellar communication, they are usually very curious about other forms of life. Maybe the humans are still in that phase. Or maybe they are smart enough to avoid getting involved in someone else's problems. Daeon replied. They reached the observation deck and looked out at the city below. Even from this height, they could see signs of the crisis. Long lines at food distribution centers, government trucks moving emergency supplies, construction crews working to reinforce buildings as the changing temperature affected the structural materials. Sir, said Youngie, what if we tried to contact other human colonies instead of just their home system? Ayan considered this. Dr. Minhee said they have colonies in 12 systems, but we only know the location of their home system. The Galactic database might have more information. Maybe we could find the coordinates of their other worlds. It was worth trying, Daeon thought. He was beginning to doubt it would matter. If the humans were going to help, they would have responded by now. 3 days later, Dr. Minhee's second message reached human space. Daeun waited 2 more days for a response, then 3. Then a full week, still nothing. The silence was becoming harder to bear than an outright refusal would have been. At least when the Zenthari said no, it was clear where they stood. At least when the Nexus Collective offered insultingly low prices for their artifacts. It was some kind of communication. But the humans said nothing at all. They have ghosted us, said Elder Advisor Yeho during the morning briefing. Just like everyone else, they have calculated that we are not worth saving. Dr. Minhee tried to stay optimistic. Maybe they need time to study our message. Maybe they are discussing how to respond. For 3 weeks, Yeho replied. No, Doctor. They've made their decision through silence. They want nothing to do with our problems. And Chancellor Juan looked even more tired than before. Dark circles had formed under her eyes, and her hands shook slightly when she held her coffee cup. How much time do we have left? 4 months, maybe 5, reported the environmental team leader. The atmospheric changes are accelerating. Need to begin full evacuation procedures within 6 weeks if we want to save anyone. That afternoon, Daeon received news that made everything worse. The Zenthari Empire had intercepted one of their messages to the humans. Somehow their military intelligence had been monitoring Villani communications. The Zenthari response came as a public broadcast across the entire galactic communication network. It was sent from Admiral Verlac, one of their most arrogant military leaders. The dying Villani have become so desperate that they now beg primitive humans for salvation, the message said. Even species barely capable of leaving their own system have the wisdom to ignore such pathetic cries for help. The Zenthari Empire suggests the Villani accept their fate with dignity rather than embarrassing themselves further. The broadcast was heard across dozens of star systems. Within hours, other species were commenting on the Villani situation. Most of the responses were similar to the Zenthari message. Some civilizations expressed sympathy, but explained why they could not help. Others simply mocked the Villani for their desperation. The Nexus Collective sent a new offer to purchase Villani cultural artifacts. The prices were even lower than before. "They smell weakness," Chancellor Jiwan said after reading the various responses. "The galaxy is watching us die, and they see only opportunity or entertainment." Daeyun felt anger burning in his chest. Not just at the Zenthari or the Nexus Collective, but at the humans too. Their silence felt like the worst response of all. At least the others were honest about their refusal to help. That evening, he stood alone on the observation deck, watching the first snow of the planetary winter begin to fall. Snow in the middle of what should have been summer? The dying star could no longer provide enough heat to maintain normal weather patterns. Dr. Minhee found him there an hour later. "I know what you are thinking," she said quietly. "Do you?" "Are thinking that we should stop trying, that we should focus all our energy on evacuation instead of waiting for help that will never come." Daeyeon nodded. "The humans have had every chance to respond. Their silence tells us everything we need to know." Minhee was quiet for a long moment, and she said, "I will monitor communications for 1 more week, if we hear nothing by then. I will recommend we stop all attempts at outside contact." 1 more week? Daeyeon agreed. He did not believe anything would change in 7 days. The humans had made their choice through silence. Like every other species in the galaxy, they had decided the Villani were not worth saving, but he would give them 1 more week to prove him wrong. 3 months had passed since Dr. Minhee sent the first message to the humans. Commander Daeyun had long since stopped checking for responses. Villani had moved into full evacuation mode, preparing to save what few they could before Khazara became completely uninhabitable. The planet was dying faster now. The second sun flickered like a candle about to go out. Ice covered most of the northern continents. The southern regions were experiencing massive storms as the changing temperatures created chaotic weather patterns. Millions of people had already died from cold, hunger, and disease. Daeyeon spent his days coordinating the evacuation efforts. They had managed to secure enough transport ships to save maybe 10 million people. It was still a tiny fraction of their population, but it was better than nothing. The selection process was heartbreaking. Families were torn apart. Children were separated from parents. Scientists and artists begged for spaces that did not exist. He was in his office, reviewing the latest evacuation lists, when his communication device chimed. It was Sun Gi from the Deep Space Monitoring Station. "Commander, you need to see this." Her voice was shaking with excitement or fear. "What is it, Sun Gi?" "Sir, I am detecting massive energy signatures at the edge of our solar system. Ships are coming out of hyperspace." Daeyeon felt his heart skip. "Zenthari?" "No, sir. These signatures are completely different from anything in our databases. The ships do not match any known design." Daeyeon dropped his datapad and ran toward the monitoring station. If unknown ships were arriving at Khazara, it could mean invasion. The Villani had no military strength left to resist an attack. All their resources were focused on evacuation. When he reached the monitoring station, Sungi was staring at her screens with wide eyes. The displays showed dozens of energy signatures appearing at the system's edge. "How many ships?" Daeyeon asked. 43 so far, sir, but more keep appearing." As they watched, the number continued to grow. 50 ships. 70. 100. The unknown fleet was massive, larger than anything the Villani had ever seen. "Are they moving toward Khazara?" Daeyeon asked. "Yes, sir. But not in attack formation. They seem to be arranging themselves in some kind of protective pattern around our planet." Dr. Minhee arrived at the monitoring station, breathing hard from running. Chancellor Jiwan was right behind her, along with several other government officials. "What are we looking at?" Chancellor Jiwan asked. "Unknown fleet," Dayon replied. "Over 100 ships of completely unfamiliar design." Minhee studied the readings on the screens. "The energy signatures are unlike anything we have seen before. The ships appear to be built with multiple different technologies, as if they came from various sources." "Could they be pirates?" asked Elder Advisor Yeho. "Pirates do not operate fleets this large," Dayon replied. "They would not arrange themselves defensively around a dying planet. Now, there is nothing left here worth stealing." More ships continued to appear. 200, 300. The fleet was growing to impossible sizes. "Sir," said Communications Officer Soyen, who had joined them at the monitoring station, "I am receiving a transmission on the frequency we use to contact the humans." Everyone turned to look at her. Dan felt something strange in his chest. Hope, maybe, though he tried to suppress it. "What does it say?" Chancellor Guan asked. Soyen adjusted her equipment, listening carefully to the incoming signal. "The message is in our language, sir. Perfect Villani grammar and pronunciation." "What does it say?" Dayon repeated, his voice more urgent now. Soyen looked up at them with tears in her eyes. "It says, 'This is Admiral Taiyong of the Human Rapid Response Fleet. We apologize for the delay. We came as fast as we could.'" The room fell completely silent. Everyone stared at Soyen as if she had spoken in an alien language. "Humans," whispered Minhee. "That is impossible," said Yeho. "The humans never responded to our messages. They ignored us completely." Dayon felt dizzy. "Are you certain the message said Human Rapid Response Fleet?" Soyen nodded. "Yes, sir. And there's more. Admiral Taiyong is requesting permission to approach Kasara orbit. He says they have brought assistance." Chancellor Juwan sat down heavily in a nearby chair. "How many ships did you say were out there?" Sungi checked her screens again. 412, Chancellor, and still growing." 400 ships, Yeho said slowly. "The humans sent 400 ships. For us?" Youngie asked quietly. "Sent 400 ships to help us?" Minhee was studying the sensor readings more carefully. "These are not just military vessels," she said with growing excitement. "I am seeing construction ships, medical frigates, what appear to be mobile habitats, and are those agricultural processors?" "Agricultural processors?" Dayon asked. "Sir, ships designed to process and distribute food on a massive scale. And there, ... she pointed at another reading. "Those look like atmospheric processing vessels." Chancellor Guan stood up slowly. "Soyen, send a response to Admiral Taeyong. Tell him he has permission to approach. Tell him, ... Tell him we are grateful beyond words." As Soyen sent the response, everyone continued watching the screens. Human fleet was arranging itself in a complex pattern around Kazara. Some ships moved toward the planet's orbit. Others positioned themselves near the failing agricultural zones. Still others began deploying what looked like scientific equipment. "They had been planning this," Minnie said with wonder. "This is not a rescue mission thrown together quickly. This is a complete operational response." "But why did they not answer our messages?" asked Youngie. Before anyone could speculate, another transmission came from Admiral Taiyong. This time it was longer and more detailed. "People of Kazara," the message said. "We received your distress calls 3 months ago. Since that time, every human colony and world has contributed to this response effort. We've brought ships, supplies, and personnel from 12 different star systems. We also have technology and techniques for stellar stabilization that we believe will help your situation. We did not respond to your earlier messages because we wanted to arrive with solutions, not empty promises." Dayon felt his knees go weak. The humans had not ignored them. They had been preparing. "There is more," Soyen said, continuing to relay the message. "Admiral Taiyong says their fleet includes specialists in stellar engineering, planetary restoration, agriculture, medicine, and refugee assistance. It says they are not here just to evacuate people, but to save the planet if possible." Elder Advisor Yeho, who had been the most pessimistic about outside help, now looked stunned. They want to save our planet? It's not just evacuate survivors? The largest ship in the human fleet was moving closer to Kazara now. It was massive, bigger than anything in Vellani space. But despite its size, it approached slowly and carefully, broadcasting peaceful intentions on every frequency. "Chancellor," said Admiral Taiyang in his next transmission, "we would like to send a team to meet with your leadership. We have much to discuss and not much time to waste. Our stellar engineers believe your sun's decay can be stopped and possibly reversed, but we will need to work together." Chancellor Jiwan looked around at her advisors, then at Daeyun, then at the screen showing hundreds of human ships surrounding their dying world. "Tell Admiral Taiyang," she said quietly, "that we welcome his people to Kezara. Tell him that we are ready to work together. And tell him, ... double quotes, she paused, wiping tears from her eyes. Tell him that we had given up hope, and he has given it back. To us." As the message was sent, Daeon looked out at the human fleet through the observation windows. 3 months ago, they had sent a desperate plea into the void, expecting nothing. Now the sky was full of ships from a young species that had crossed dozens of star systems to help complete strangers. The humans had not ignored them after all. They had been coming as fast as they could. Admiral Taeyon's flagship was unlike anything the Vellani had ever seen. It was huge, easily, 10 times the size of their largest vessels, but it was also somehow elegant despite its massive bulk. The hull was covered with symbols and markings. From what appeared to be dozens of different human colonies, Commander Daeon stood in the docking bay as the human shuttle landed. He was nervous, though he tried not to show it. Everything depended on this meeting. The humans had brought hundreds of ships, but that did not guarantee they could actually help. The shuttle door opened, and Admiral Taiyang stepped out. He was taller than most Vellani, with dark hair and kind eyes. Behind him came a team of humans in various uniforms: scientists, engineers, medical personnel, and others Daeon could not immediately identify. "Commander Daeon," Admiral Taiyang said, "in perfect Vellani, I am honored to meet you. I wish it were under better circumstances." "Admiral, the honor is ours," Daeon replied. "We are grateful that you came at all." "We came as fast as we could," Taiyang said simply, "though I know it must have seemed like we were ignoring your calls." A woman in a science uniform stepped forward. "I am Dr. Seojin, Chief Stellar Engineer for the human fleet. Commander, we need to examine your star immediately. Time is critical." Dr. Minhei, who had been waiting nearby, approached the group. "Dr. Seojin, I am Minhei, head of our Communication and Science Division. I have all our data on the stars. Decay pattern ready for you." Dr. Seojin smiled. "Excellent. Dr. Minhei, I have studied your transmissions extensively. Your people's scientific observations are remarkably detailed. That will help us greatly." As they walked toward the command center, Daeon found himself studying the humans. They moved with quiet confidence, but there was also something else. They seemed genuinely concerned about the Vellani situation, not just professionally interested. Admiral Daeon said, "Your message mentioned that every human colony contributed to this mission. How is that possible? We are strangers to you." "Admiral." Taiyang was quiet for a moment. "Commander, may I ask you something first? When you sent that distress call 3 months ago, did you expect anyone to answer?" "Honestly, no. We had already been refused by every major power in this region of the galaxy." "Why did those powers refuse?" Daeon felt embarrassed. "They said we had nothing to offer in return. No strategic value, no resources worth the cost of helping us. And what did you think we would say? It's the same thing eventually. But we were desperate. We had to try." Admiral Taiyang nodded. "A desperation, that willingness to reach out to complete strangers for help. That told us everything we needed to know about your people." They reached the command center, where Chancellor Giwan and her advisors were waiting. The introductions were formal but warm. Dr. Seojin immediately began working with Dr. Minhei and the Vellani science team, reviewing all the data about their dying star. "This is fascinating," Dr. Seojin said as she studied the readings. "The decay pattern is almost identical to what we encountered in the Proxima system 18 months ago. You have seen this before? Minhei asked with excitement. Twice, actually. Both times we were able to stop the decay and stabilize the star. In the Proxima case, we actually improved the star's long-term output. Chancellor Giwan leaned forward. You can save our son? I believe so, Dr. Sijin replied. But it will require close cooperation between our technologies. Your people understand this star better than anyone. We have the equipment to implement the solution. Captain Yunji, who commanded the human terraforming fleet, joined the conversation. Chancellor, we also brought atmospheric processors and agricultural rehabilitation equipment. Even if we stabilize the star immediately, it will take time for your planet to recover. We can speed that process considerably. How long? Asked Elder Advisor Yeho. For basic atmospheric stability. 2 to 3 weeks? For full agricultural recovery? Perhaps 6 months? Yeho stared at her. 6 months? Our agricultural zones have been failing for over a year. Human agricultural technology is very advanced, Captain Yunji explained. We have developed techniques for rapid soil restoration and climate recovery. But more importantly, we brought supplies, food, medicine, construction materials, power generators. Commander Jinsu, who led the Human Refugee Assistance Division, addressed Chancellor Giwan directly. Chancellor, we also established temporary habitats in 3 nearby systems. If any of your people wish to relocate permanently, we can accommodate. Several million immediately. You would give us entire worlds? Youngie asked, her voice filled with disbelief. Not give, Jinsu replied. Share, we have learned that diverse populations make colonies stronger and more successful. Your people would be partners, not refugees. Dayon was struggling to understand what he was hearing. The humans were offering not just to save Khazara, but to integrate Villani civilians into human society. Admiral, he said carefully, this level of assistance... What do you want in return? Admiral Taiyong smiled. Partnership, Commander? Your people have achieved remarkable things in biotechnology and environmental science. Your cultural achievements in art and music are extraordinary. Your philosophical works on interspecies cooperation are required reading in our military academies. You know our philosophy? Chancellor Giwan asked. We studied everything you sent us. Your society's commitment to helping other species, your environmental protection techniques, your approaches to conflict resolution. These are exactly the qualities we need as we expand further into the galaxy. Dr. Siajin looked up from her data analysis. Admiral, I have good news. The star's decay can definitely be reversed. The process will take approximately 72 hours once we begin. 72 hours, Minhee repeated softly. Our star will be healthy again in 3 days. Better than healthy, Dr. Siajin replied. The stabilization process will actually extend its lifespan by several million years. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. 3 months ago, they had been preparing for the extinction of their entire civilization. Now they were being told their star would burn longer than it ever had. There is one thing you should know, Admiral Taiyong said seriously. Word of our mission here will spread quickly across the galaxy. The Zenthari Empire and other powers will take notice. Some may not appreciate human involvement in this region of space. Are you concerned about retaliation? Chancellor Giwan asked. Concerned? No. Prepared. Yes. Commander Dayoon, you may have noticed that approximately 1/3 of our fleet consists of military vessels. Dayoon had noticed the human warships were sleek and powerful looking, unlike anything he had seen before. We do not seek conflict, Admiral Taiyong continued, but we protect our friends. The Villani are under human protection now. Protection? Yeho asked. A formal alliance, if you will accept it. Mutual defense, shared technology, cultural exchange, joint exploration missions. We believe that together our species can accomplish far more than either could alone. Dr. Minhee was looking at the human scientists with something approaching worship. You really came here to save us, not to exploit us or use us, but to genuinely help. Dr. Siajin nodded. Dr. Minhee, your people sent us the most honest, detailed distress call we have ever received. You shared your entire civilization with complete strangers because you trusted us to care. How could we not respond to that level of trust? Captain Yunji added. Besides, saving civilizations is what humans do. We have helped 12 other species recover from various disasters. It is part of who we are. 12 other species? Dayon asked. Environmental collapse, plague, asteroid impact, stellar instability, resource depletion, civil war, Admiral Taiyong listed. Every situation requires different solutions, but the principle is always the same. No one should face extinction alone. Chancellor Juan stood up slowly. Admiral Taiyong, on behalf of all Villani people, I accept your offer of alliance and partnership. We would be honored to work with humanity. The honor is ours, Chancellor, Taiyong replied as the formal agreements were being discussed. Dayon found himself looking out at the human fleet through the observation windows. Hundreds of ships from dozens of human worlds, all here because one desperate species had sent a message into the void asking for help. The humans had received that message and responded not with calculations of profit or strategic advantage, but with the largest rescue operation in galactic history. They truly were different from every other species in the galaxy. 2 weeks after the humans arrived, Commander Dayon could barely recognize his own world. Where there had been dying agricultural zones, massive human terraforming machines now worked day and night to restore the soil. Where there had been failing power grids, human engineers had installed fusion generators that provided more energy than Kezra had ever known. But the most amazing change was in the sky itself. The second sun, which had been flickering and dying for months, now burned, bright and steady. Dr. Siajin and her team had not only stopped the decay, but had actually improved the star's output. Kasara was warmer and more stable than it had been in decades. Dayon walked through the capital city, watching human and Villani workers collaborating on reconstruction projects. The humans had brought advanced building materials and construction techniques, but they were learning from Villani architectural traditions. The result was structures that were both more durable and more beautiful than anything either species had built alone. Commander called a familiar voice. Dayon turned to see Supervisor Kung Su approaching. He was a human engineering specialist who had been working with Villani technicians to upgrade their infrastructure. Supervisor, how is the power grid integration proceeding? Kung Su smiled. Better than expected. Your people's energy distribution network is actually more efficient than our standard designs. We are learning as much from you as you are from us. This seemed to be a common theme. The humans had brought advanced technology and vast resources, but they were genuinely interested in Villani knowledge and techniques. Dr. Houn, a human xenobiologist, had spent days studying Villani environmental restoration methods. She called them elegant solutions that worked with natural systems instead of fighting them. Commander Kung Su continued, I wanted to show you something. We have been working on combining human industrial capacity with Villani biotechnology. Led Dayon to one of the agricultural zones that had been completely dead just weeks before. Now it was covered with growing plants, but these were not ordinary crops. Dr. Minhee worked with our agricultural specialists to create these hybrid growing systems, Kung Su explained. The plants grow 3 times faster than normal crops, but they also improve the soil as they grow. In 6 months, this entire region will be more fertile than it was before the crisis began. Dayon knelt down to examine one of the plants. It was beautiful, with leaves that seemed to shimmer in the sunlight. This is remarkable. The best part is that we can adapt this technique for other worlds, Kung Su said. Human colonies that have struggled with agriculture will benefit. From Villani biotechnology, your people are not just being saved, Commander. You are contributing to the advancement of both our civilizations. As they walked back toward the city, Dayon saw something that made him stop. A group of human children were playing with Villani children in a park that had been rebuilt with a combination of human and Villani design principles. The children seemed to communicate easily despite the language differences, using gestures and drawings to share games and stories. The next generation will grow up together, Kung Su observed. Human and Villani children learning from each other from the beginning. Imagine what they will accomplish. That evening, Dayon attended a meeting. In the joint command center that had been established for human-Villani cooperation, Chancellor Guan was there, along with Admiral Tyone and several other leaders from both species. The terraforming process is ahead of schedule, reported Captain Yunji. Atmospheric composition is already within normal ranges. We should have full climate stability within another week. Dr. Siajin added her own update. The stellar stabilization is complete. The star will remain stable for the next 3 million years minimum. We have also installed monitoring equipment to ensure early detection of any future problems. What about the population? Asked Chancellor Juan. Commander Jinsu consulted his datapad. Approximately 2 million Villani have chosen to relocate permanently to human worlds. They are being integrated into established colonies and are already contributing to local communities. Another 500,000 have requested temporary relocation while Khazara completes its recovery. And the rest prefer to stay here? Dayon asked. Yes, but many want to participate in joint exploration and research projects. We are establishing a permanent human Villani research station here that will serve as a base for future missions.
Admiral?
Taeyong leaned forward. There is something else we need to discuss. The Zenthari Empire has been monitoring our activities here. Their fleets have increased patrols along this sector's borders. Do you think they will interfere? Chancellor Giwan asked. Possibly. The Zenthari do not like changes to the balance of power in this region. Strong human Villani alliance threatens their dominance. Daeun felt a familiar knot of worry in his stomach. Are we putting you in danger by accepting your help? Commander Admiral Taeyong said firmly. We knew the risks when we came here. Saving your people was worth those risks. But more importantly, we are not defenseless. As if to emphasize his point, alerts began sounding in the command center. Communications Officer Soyin looked up from her console with concern. Admiral, we are detecting Zenthari ships entering the system. 24 vessels in attack formation. Admiral Taeyong stood calmly. How long until they reach Khazara orbit? 47 minutes, sir. Very well. Taeyong activated his communication device. All human fleet elements. This is Admiral Taeyong. We have incoming Zenthari forces. Assume defensive positions around Khazara. Rules of engagement are to protect Villani civilians and infrastructure. Do not fire first, but respond decisively to any aggressive action. Dayon watched through the observation windows as the human fleet moved into new positions. The warships formed a protective barrier between the Zenthari and Khazara, while the civilian vessels moved to safer positions behind the planet. Admiral, he said quietly, there are only 24 Zenthari ships, but they are very advanced. Each one is equivalent to several normal warships. Thank you for the information, Commander. But you should know that human military doctrine has evolved considerably in recent years. The Zenthari fleet approached at high speed, clearly intending to intimidate through an aggressive display of force. Their lead ship began broadcasting on all frequencies. Human vessels, you are trespassing in Zenthara-controlled space. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. Admiral Taeyong's response was broadcast equally widely. Zenthari Commander, we are in Villani space by invitation of the legitimate government. We have no aggressive intentions toward the Zenthari Empire, but we will protect our allies. Allies? The Zenthari Commander replied with contempt. Villani are a failed species on a dying world. They have nothing to offer anyone. That is where you are wrong, Taeyong said calmly. The Zenthari Commander, who Dayon recognized as the arrogant Verlac who had mocked them months earlier, seemed to lose patience. You will withdraw now, or we will remove you, respectfully. Decline? Verlac's next transmission was full of rage. 24 Zenthari warships against your small fleet. You are either very brave or very stupid, humans. Admiral Taeyong's voice remained calm and professional. Commander Verlac, you are correct that you have 24 ships. However, you appear to have miscounted our forces. As he spoke, space around the Zenthari fleet began to shimmer. Dozens of human ships that had been hidden by advanced stealth technology suddenly became visible. The Zenthari found themselves surrounded by over 100 human warships. How is this possible? Verlac demanded. Human military technology, Commander. We prefer diplomacy, but we prepare for all possibilities. The space battle that followed lasted exactly 17 minutes. The human ships moved with precision and coordination that astounded both the Villani and the Zenthari. Their weapons were more advanced than anything in Zenthari arsenals. Their tactics were flawless. When it was over, 8 Zenthari ships had been destroyed, and the rest were retreating as fast as their engines could carry them. The human fleet had suffered no casualties and minimal damage. This is Commander Verlac. To all Zenthari forces came a desperate transmission as the survivors fled. Do not engage human fleets. Repeat, avoid all contact with human military forces. They are far more dangerous than intelligence reports indicated. Admiral Taiyong watched the retreating ships with satisfaction. I believe that message will be heard throughout Zenthari space. Daeon stared at the debris field where the Zenthari ships had been destroyed. The same Zenthari who had mocked the Villani for their desperation, who had ruled this region of space, through fear and intimidation, had just been completely outmatched by human forces. Admiral, he said quietly, how did you hide so many ships? Stealth technology is one of our specialties, Taiyong replied. We prefer enemies to underestimate us until it is too late. Chancellor Juwan looked stunned. The galaxy will hear about this battle. Everyone will know that humanity defeated the Zenthari. Yes, Taiyong nodded. And they will know that humanity protects its friends. I suspect we will receive fewer challenges in the future. As reports of the battle spread across galactic communication networks, Daeon realized that everything had changed. The humans had not just saved the Villani civilization. They had announced to the entire galaxy that the rules were different. Now, compassion was backed by strength. Friendship was defended by force. And species that helped each other had become more powerful than species that stood alone. 6 months after the humans first arrived at Kazara, Commander Daeon stood in the same observation deck where he had once watched his world die. Now he watched it thrive in ways that seemed impossible just a year ago. The capital city bustled. With activity unlike anything in Villani history, human and Villani engineers worked together on construction projects that combined the best of both technologies. Scientists from both species collaborated in research facilities that were producing discoveries neither could have made alone. Artists and musicians from 2 worlds created new forms of expression that amazed everyone. The agricultural zones were not just restored but improved beyond their original capacity. The hybrid growing systems developed by human and Villani experts produced more food than Kazara had ever grown, while actually enriching the soil for future generations. Other human colonies were already requesting seeds and techniques from these joint projects. Commander, said a voice behind him. Daeon turned to see Admiral Taiyong approaching. The human admiral had become a close friend over the past months. Admiral, I thought you were preparing for departure. I am. The fleet will begin leaving tomorrow, but most of our people will remain. Now, this has become much more than a rescue mission. Daeon nodded. Dr. Minhei tells me that the joint research station will be operational within 2 months. Yes, and it will serve as headquarters for our next mission. We have received distress calls from 3 other systems. 2 are facing environmental collapse, and 1 is dealing with a plague that their medical system cannot cure. You will help them all, of course? And this time Villani ships and personnel will join the response fleets. Your people have expertise in biotechnology and environmental restoration that could save millions of lives. The idea still amazed Daeon. The Villani, who had been facing extinction less than a year ago, were now partners in helping other species survive similar crises. Dr. Minhei joined them on the observation deck, carrying a datapad full of reports. Commander, Admiral, the preliminary results from the Proxima colony are extraordinary. What did you find? Admiral Taiyong asked. The Villani families who relocated there have integrated perfectly with the human population. More importantly, their environmental techniques have increased agricultural productivity by 40%. The colony is now completely self-sufficient for the first time. And the humans living there? They love having Villani neighbors. Cultural exchange is benefiting everyone. Human children are learning Villani art and music. Villani children are excelling in human engineering and mathematics programs. Daeon smiled. What about the other colonies? Similar results everywhere. The integration has been so successful that 6 more human colonies have requested Villani settlers. A new voice joined the conversation. The galaxy is taking notice, said Chancellor Juwan as she approached the group. We are receiving diplomatic inquiries from species that ignored us completely when we were dying. The Nexus Collective? Admiral Taiyong asked. They have offered to purchase our biotechnology at prices 100 times higher than their previous offers. The Korathi Federation wants to establish trade agreements. Even some of the smaller Xanthari client states are asking about possible cooperation. In your response, we told them all the same thing. Any species that wants to work with the Villani must also work with humanity. We are partners now, in everything. Dayan felt a surge of pride. The Villani were no longer desperate supplicants, begging for scraps. They were equal partners in an alliance that was changing the balance of power across this entire region of the galaxy. There is other news, Chancellor, Juwan continued. The first graduating class from the Joint Military Academy reported for duty this morning. The Joint Military Academy had been established to train officers from both species in combined operations. Young Villani and human cadets learned to work together from the beginning of their careers. How many graduates? Admiral Taiyong asked. 50 Villani, 150 humans. They will serve on the new joint exploration vessels. The exploration program was one of the most exciting developments. Combined human and Villani crews were mapping unknown regions of space, searching for new worlds and new civilizations. Their ships carried the most advanced sensors and diplomatic equipment available, designed to make first contact with unknown species as positive as possible. Speaking of exploration, Dr. Minnie said, we received another transmission from the Deep Space Monitoring Station. Long-range sensors have detected what appears to be an artificial structure in the Kepler 442 system. Artificial how? Dayan asked. Too geometric to be natural? Too large to be a space station? It might be a megastructure of some kind, but built by unknown technology. Admiral Taiyong looked interested. How far? 67 light-years. Well within range of our newest exploration vessels. Volunteers for the mission. Every officer in the joint fleet, Chancellor Ji-Wan replied with a laugh. They had to establish a selection process, just to manage all the applications. As they talked, Dayan noticed activity at the spaceport below. A large transport ship was preparing for departure, its hull marked with both human and Villani symbols. The refugee assistance mission? He asked. Yes, Admiral Taiyong replied. Captain Jinsu is leading a joint fleet to the Vega system. 3 million refugees from a civil war that has been raging for decades. Both sides have finally agreed to peace negotiations, but they need help rebuilding their worlds. And we can provide that help now? We can. Industrial capacity, Villani environmental restoration techniques, and diplomatic experience from both species. The mission should take about 8 months. Dr. Minhee looked up from her datapad. I have a report from Ambassador Youngie on the Galactic diplomatic situation. Youngie had been promoted to full ambassador and now represented both Villani and human interests at the Galactic Council. What does she say? The Xanthari Empire is requesting a formal meeting. They want to discuss mutual understanding and cooperation. The Nexus Collective is proposing a technology sharing agreement. The 12 smaller civilizations have applied for associate membership in the Human-Villani Alliance. Associate membership? Dayan asked. Chancellor Jaewon explained. A preliminary partnership status. They contribute to joint